So you should get it in a second here, and you can go ahead and consent to the record. Good morning. It's wonderful to see so many people here. I'm glad you're all as excited about the content of this presentation as I am. I think it's going to be a really great one. My name is Becky Menton. I'm a Senior Regulatory and Policy Specialist here at the Building Decarbonization Coalition, but I had the opportunity to work with the folks at Revalue in my past job at a local CCA and really had a front row seat to how hard they're working and the awesome things that they were able to do in our community. So I'm really thrilled to have the chance to moderate this presentation this morning and let them share with you more about what they're up to, who they are and what they're up to. This morning, we're going to go through just a few slides of sort of general presentation, general BDC background information. Then we'll get to the meat of it. We're going to try to save about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of the presentation for your questions. So just know that that time will be coming up and we're looking forward to it. And with that, I think we can move on to the next slide. So just a little bit of background information about the Building Decarbonization Coalition in general. I like to think of us as an industry group that's really focused on the movement of decarbonizing the built environment. We are a membership-based organization. We have great representation from across industry. We have utility members, we have local government members, we have NGO members, and we're really just excited to be that space, that coalition space for folks who are working hard on this movement. If you are not already a member and would like to be, it is easy and free to be involved. And so we encourage everybody to consider joining our membership. Also, we're sharing a link to our newsletter. If you'd like to sign up to receive updates and be a member and be in the know about what's happening in the building decarbonization space, encourage you to follow that link. And next slide, please. Briefly, I wanted to mention a new report that the BDC has released recently that really is looking at how just converting AC units over to heat pumps can really dramatically improve market development for the heat pump space, lower costs for homeowners, improve efficiency and performance within a home. And I think it's a really great new strategy that folks should pay attention to in terms of how we can really accelerate adoption of these heat pump technologies. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to download that report, take a look, and let us know what you think. Next up, there's just a few events that we wanted to make sure were on your radar. We have national policy calls once a month where we have an opportunity to focus in on either specific initiatives within a state or on some interesting movement that's happening across the country. This next one that's happening August 22nd will be focusing on Massachusetts. There's a lot happening in Massachusetts for building electrification and has been for a while. So if you're interested in this comparative national strategy, I highly encourage you to sign up for that. And we dropped a link in the chat for registration, so pay attention to that. For those of you who are very familiar with the way BDC does our presentations, typically we have a monthly policy call focused just on California. However, next week, the BDC will be at an all-staff retreat, and so we will be taking the month of July off. However, we have included pretty robust policy updates on our website, so see the link there, and you have the link for the next policy call, which will be August 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right, so moving into webinar logistics, a few polite requests. Please make sure you're muted. If you can ask your questions via chat, we'll be consolidating those and making sure they get raised at the end of the presentation. As you noted, this webinar is being recorded and it will be placed on our website. So you can get access to that through the resource library. As I mentioned, membership is free. You can sign up for our newsletter and the links for all of those things are in the chat. Now to the meat of the event and why we are here, or the tofu if you are vegetarian. So I am very thrilled to have an opportunity to present to the folks at Revalue. Revalue has been working hard on market development for both community development and electrification, really focusing on low to moderate income communities, trying to increase opportunities for homeowners and home occupants within the communities that they live in. Our two speakers today are Mark Hall and Aaron Clay. Aaron is Revalue's Director of Community Transformation. He's a seasoned community development executive. He has over 15 years of experience working in economic development, real estate, consumer protection, sustainable energy. Before Revalue, he was CEO of Sunswarm Solar, where he led development of community solar projects, focused on financial and environmental benefits, job creation, and sustainability. In addition to that work, he's contributed to clean energy initiatives through California Energy Commission working groups and as an advisor to Green the Church, which is another amazing Oakland-based organization, which I have a lot of love and respect for. And he serves on the board for the League of Conservation Voters and Youth Uprising. Mark Hall is an Oakland, California native. He used to work for the city of Oakland as the capital improvement project manager, but really saw an opportunity to develop a new organization that would really increase opportunities within his community for folks from the dollars that are coming down the table. Thus, he went and started Revalue. It's an energy efficiency project developer working to prepare communities for the clean energy transition through both energy efficiency investments and workforce development. In 2019, Mark was appointed to the California Green Bond Market Development Committee by California State Treasurer Fiona Ma, and he's currently working with local jurisdictions and issuers to increase adoption, equity, and diversity in this space. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to turn the presentation over to our two hosts.
Thank you very much, Becky. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Becky.
Yes. So as Becky mentioned, my name is Mark Hall. Thank you. Glad to be here this morning. We're here to talk about experiences and lessons learned from early building electrification, market, and community development. Just some of the things that we've learned and share some best practices moving forward. So we can go to the next slide. So what is electrification? Electrification means replacing technologies that use fossil fuels such as oil, coal, and natural gas with technologies that run on electricity. Electrification holds great potential to reduce final energy demand because the efficiency of electric technologies are generally much more efficient than fossil fuel alternatives with similar energy services. And the way that I actually explain it to our customers and our contractors, actually, because a lot of folks aren't familiar with that terminology, is, we're basically taking gas systems out of homes and replacing them with electricity. And with the CCAs, community choice aggregators, as Becky mentioned, now a lot of that energy is clean energy. So that's sort of how we explain it to people that we work with. So we can go to the next slide. So yeah, since 2015, we've been working with a whole group of local community partners to prepare them for the transition to clean energy, to prepare folks' homes, do a lot of education around the different programs and offerings that are available and what that means to them in their homes. So that means not just doing the energy efficiency, but also addressing home health hazards. And as you'll see in the picture to the right, that's one of our early homeowners that we work with. I think that was out in Fremont, and that's actually a HEPA air filter that we did as a temporary fix. But normally when folks come in, they have a range of issues that we have to deal with before you can get straight to the electrification. So we can go to the next slide. So our mission is to make residential buildings more energy efficient, healthier, and sustainable through technology and community collaborations. As we've been talking about, there's a huge push. And basically the decision has been made to switch to clean energy. And so now we are basically working to prepare the buildings and their occupants for the transition, making these different improvements and addressing several barriers through our customized process, making sure that the local minority contractors are trained and ready to participate and support the transition. So we can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, property owners and residents. So, you know, a lot of the issues with electrification are basically that the process is too complex. And so we do have a technology platform that we use with our property owners, occupants, pretty much, and our contractors to streamline that process. You know, we find out what the issues are coming in, and we're able to bring all those resources together and streamline to sort of take some of the frustration out of the process. If any of you have ever done a home improvement or anything like that, you know there's a lot of different moving parts, and then you know, based on your situation, there's a lot of times a lot of different resources and things that you can apply to it. So you know, basically we work to you know, remove that frustration, not just for the property owners and the residents, but also for the contractors. You know, besides the training, you know, we recognize that a lot of them also need access to projects and need support with their back office. So we do provide them with technology to support that. So we can go to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to Aaron.
Sure. Mark mentioned that our two primary customers are property owners, occupants, the residents, and the contractors. And as far as focusing on the property owners, you know, we have sort of three categories. We have the early adopters, you know, those who want the newest technology and they understand the benefits of fuel switching. And they also want to prepare for any renewable energy generation. They want to be able to put solar. So they want to do the electrical panel upgrades. They want to do the installation to make sure they get all those benefits and lower their bills. And they kind of have a good pathway to doing that. And then we have high opportunity housing. And that's sort of how we categorize those people who may or may not understand how to do it, but there's an opportunity to help them do the upgrades because their furnace has just failed, or they need, their appliances are failing, and so it's time to replace it. So it's really those who, the opportunity is the replacement time due to age and condition. But then we have, and they have some issues. It may be costly, it may, you know, require some information, but generally we don't have to convince them too hard that, you know, to make these upgrades because they can see the benefit. Where we really have to focus our efforts, if we want to see transformation at scale, is in our priority communities. So we're talking about those communities, often communities of color, low-income communities, even middle-income, low to mid-income communities, disabled households, seniors, those that really need sort of an understanding of the process, and they need resources allocated so they can do these projects. And one of the reasons it's difficult, one, it's costly. You know, it's costly to do these projects. Our projects usually range from between $30,000 to $60,000. It can be difficult to deal with the permitting and all of the paperwork and dealing with contractors to do these projects, and it's time consuming, and it just makes it very difficult. And since these are the projects that we really want to focus on, not doing it is also inequitable because these are the ones that also have very negative health considerations based on a lot of time deferred maintenance, broken windows, lack of insulation, things like that, leaky gas stoves. And we found out that a lot of the, I'll say a number of programs, social service programs that provide remediation don't necessarily do fuel switching as a matter of course. So they may have a home health hazard, somebody's stove or furnace went out and it's cold. A lot of times they'll just automatically replace it with another gas furnace instead of actually looking at the opportunity to switch it over to electric. So that requires messaging about the need to switch over and also people to do the work. And one of the things that I like to tell people, because sometimes people don't understand about the messaging, you have to address the fact that somebody's cold and sick right now before you can tell them about how this will benefit, you know, climate change movement, you know, 5-10 years from now. You really have to address their immediate problems. And the last thing that makes it difficult for the priority communities is that we need more contractors to work in these communities. There are a lot of contractors who've been doing HVAC, who've been doing some of this for a little while, but they're very satisfied working in certain areas and not working in others. So starting out, we found contractors that were doing this, but they were like, oh, I'm not coming to Oakland. I'm not coming to Berkeley. I'm not coming to Richmond. But they worked in, Marin County, or they worked in Santa Clara, more in the high net worth areas. And they were okay with that, even though there was a large need for contractors to do projects in these other areas. So we found out that we really also need to train people in our own communities to help service the people in those communities. It makes the occupants a lot more comfortable seeing something that, seeing people that look like them and they know that are comfortable working in the community. And it provides an opportunity for contractors and for communities to really have a sense of empowerment and wealth building. Next slide. So some of those priority communities, the barriers and obstacles, there are three things that we like to focus on. It's, kind of call it the 3 C's: community, cost, and capacity. And so with the community, we definitely need more outreach, and it needs to be funded better. When I say outreach, people think that, just some emails or this is outreach, but we actually need to engage community groups and partner with community groups to really do effective and intentional messaging. And we also need to provide, the cost is an issue. So we need to provide more resources, more intentional investments into these communities to lower the project costs. As I mentioned before, a lot of this housing stock, we have a lot of older housing stock that needs to be addressed. So there's a lot of deferred maintenance, whether it be the roofs, the window, things like that. And so those remediation needs definitely need to be dealt with, and these things cost money. And then the third thing, that capacity. There's just not enough skilled workforce to make this transition. We want to do this at scale. We want to transform communities and cities and states. And there's just, there was already a construction shortage, and that was sort of exacerbated by during COVID, when, a lot of the job training programs sort of were put on hold because you couldn't do in person as much. But if we're going to make this transition, and we want it to be a just transition, we really have to build up our skilled workforce in this area. And it has to be a very diverse workforce to be able to engage the communities. Scaling just won't happen without increasing our workforce. So next slide. So prior communities, how do we reach them? How do we serve them? A lot of people, a lot of communities, groups and cities say, hey, I want to reach these, and they actually categorize them as hard to reach communities. And I just sort of look at it as you address their needs first. Maslow hierarchy needs say, you have to address the deficiency needs, the things that provide for their survival before you really provide for their future benefit needs. And so for us, it falls under the category of health first, then comfort, and then energy burden, meaning lowering the cost of how much they spend for their energy use, and then also explaining the benefits to the environment on a larger scale. But you have to deal with the health. In Oakland, some of these communities, we have the largest rate of asthma, especially in children, and a lot is primarily due to their home environment. And so these are things that we have to address initially, and this is how we speak to these priority communities. And also, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, or we'll allow a little time for questions afterwards. But please remember your questions, because I would love to hear them. So Mark, you want to talk a little bit more about the process and how we do it?
Yeah. No, that was perfect. Thank you, Aaron. So we've talked about how to make the process of electrification for our communities, how to address the community and address the issues of cost and capacity. One of the most important partners has been the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. Some of you may be familiar with the organization. Ruth Ann Norton is the founder. Her team is amazing. Being able to leverage this process of aligning, braiding, and coordinating the resources has been great. We started off and we're just kind of bootstrapping it pretty much, talking to contractors, talking to homeowners, renters about their issues, talking to program administrators about their issues as well. And then connected with the Green Healthy Homes Initiative and, leveraged, some of their learned lessons in this process. And so we have been able to develop a customized model for Alameda County, actually, looking at delivering a customized solution for each one of these homes through, aligning the different available services, braiding them together based on the specific profile of that home, and then coordinating that delivery with different community groups and stakeholders. And so we've basically found that that's the best way to be culturally competent in a community, is to actually listen to them and develop your solution based upon that need and the available resources. So we can move to the next slide.
Mark, you want to mention some of the partners, some of the resources,
yes.
some of our partners?
Most definitely, yes. I mentioned Green Healthy Homes, but and I believe there may be some of them on the call today. As we were basically getting started and sort of bootstrapping, as I say, we had a ton of local support. When I say community partners, I'm meaning BayREN, as Aaron mentioned, East Bay Community Energy, the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. We work with the tech program through the state of California, local cities, City of Oakland, Berkeley, and so being able to bring those program resources to the types of trainings and community education programs that we do was really important. So being able to just show that is available. So no, definitely shout out to all of our partners, definitely, especially BayREN. They've been amazing. And so when we talk about community, so you all may be familiar with this home, may have seen it on the East Bay Green Home Tour, actually. So this was Vince Gibbs out in North Oakland. He's actually in the clean energy space, and he reached out early. I guess he could be considered one of the early adopters. Was interested in electrifying his home, was also interested in solar. But really, he wanted to figure out how to make his family more comfortable in their home. They're very health conscious. And so after we did the air sealing and weatherization, the insulation, his daughter, mentioned that she was spending more time in her room. She was doing her homework in there, hanging out with her friends, and so all the electrification is great, but really talking about how to move the needle and making folks more comfortable and healthy in their homes has really been a great benefit that we've seen. And then recently Vince just moved because of his job. He just moved to Texas in the clean energy space. And because of these improvements, he was actually able to see an increased value in his home. So that's definitely another huge benefit, especially in the Bay Area, as you're leveraging these different program resources to make these improvements. That's a pretty big, pretty good bang for your buck. So yeah, we can move to the next slide.
I also want to mention regarding the case study of Mr. Gibbs' home is that we wouldn't have known. A lot of contractors come in and just replace the furnace or just replace one thing because that's what they know. If we do a home hazard assessment before every project, it's pretty comprehensive, looks at outside and inside hazards, looks at all the small things. It's a 29-point, literally 30-page checklist of looking at the possibility of where we can really make improvements. And so we wouldn't have known some of the things that made Vince's house more comfortable as far as the weatherization needs if we hadn't done that really comprehensive look at the hazards and how to improve the safety and comfort in his home. So I just wanted to mention that. And we sort of do that with every project, with every residential project, is really a comprehensive look. Community, our partnerships are important. And so our East Bay Community Energy Partnership, we are the project facilitator for the East Bay Energy Health E-Homes campaign. It's on their website for electrification for those customers who want to do energy efficiency electrification projects. And so this is actually a screenshot from their page. And so they have an intake form. They have our name on there showing the steps that we do to assess their home and do the work. And what's good about this is the merging of technologies, collaboration between the two. We use a lot of technology to identify homes at scale. But with the East Bay Community Energy Home, interested persons, they can put their information in, just basic information, and through the portal, and it goes directly to our database, so we can start that process. We can start looking up the history of the home and some of the home characteristics quickly. So it makes things a lot more efficient. And it makes customers feel a lot more comfortable that when we contact them, we actually have an understanding of some of their needs, whether it's an older home, whether it has asbestos, whether there's some outstanding housing complaints on it and things like that. So having that collaboration with the utility is just really a positive and helpful situation. Next slide.
So costs, we've been talking about community cost and capacity, and just another shout out to our partners with GHHI. They've been amazing being able to actually illustrate how the root cause of a lot of the healthcare costs are addressed as you're doing these energy efficiency improvements. They can be addressed by as you're in a home looking to do electrification. Moisture a lot of times is an issue. Drafts are an issue, things like that. And so as you're doing the assessment, the first step a lot of times for us is air sealing and insulation. You're able to find out the root cause there. And so cost, how do we bring additional funding to the table? We identify areas that we're able to reduce costs for folks. So the healthcare industry, working with local community partners, the Alameda County Healthy Homes Department, on some case studies to illustrate to local healthcare partners that this makes sense to invest in. You saw that the East Bay Community Energy Health E-Homes program, has health first. And so how can we, formalize this process of aligning, braiding, and coordinating resources, bring additional resources to the table from some of our partners. And so that's one thing that we're really excited to be working with the GHHI initiative on here in California. Specifically, they have what's called in lieu of services, where you can actually use a portion of your healthcare plan to go towards in-home improvements that reduce your the amount of time that you're spending in the hospital or being served by a healthcare provider. So really excited to scale that up and leverage those resources as well. So we can go to the next slide. So capacity, we don't assume things about communities. We really like to get in there and figure out, do basically like a needs assessment and figure out what's there on the ground, how can we support what's working, and then what are the gaps that we need to fill. So working with the Construction Resource Center and the national, that's CRC, and NAMAC, which is the National Association of Minority Contractors, and the Cypress Mandela Training Center, which is probably one of, if not the largest construction trades facility here in probably Northern California. Basically working with partners. We have some of the trainers from PG&E come out, supported by City of Berkeley, Tech, Bayren, a lot of other partners, to basically bring residential electrification training to where it's accessible to folks. So we had over 50 contractors sign up for the program, and we had some in-class sessions, and then you see some pictures here actually of our lab. So we went through designing and the process of actually installing heat pump. You see a house there in the background, so they're able to actually go through all those steps there. And we will be doing more of these, but this is something that we heard from our contractors and our local partners that was pretty much essential to increasing capacity. We had to make the training more accessible, and so it's been really great to work with all these partners and actually see this come to fruition. We got great feedback from the contractors and their workforce, already. You see some of the even young people in the program who are actually going to be the folks that are going to be taking over these companies, and so getting them started early, making sure that they're aware that this is important to make an investment in was really encouraging, definitely. So yeah.
Just want to touch on that workforce partnership part. We have partnerships in really all areas of the ecosystem, and I think that's really where we try to provide our value, as being the glue to bring together all of these partners. So on that last slide, there were actually some heat pumps there that were provided by some of the manufacturers that we reached out to, and they provided those. So that our contractors could not only have, sort of lecture style and book resources, but also could literally turn around in their desk and after lunch, be able to work on those on the same day without having to go to a site. They could put their hands on it, see the part, see the way it's installed. Mark showed you that house, but that they could see exactly how it's installed, how to fix the drywall, all of those pieces. So I think the partnership piece is really important, not only on the community side, but also on the workforce development side with PG&E and with the manufacturers. So if there are any manufacturers out there who are interested in increasing the contractors who can install their equipment, then we want to see what we can do to help that. And I say that because the slide is market transformation. This whole nation needs to be transformed, and we know this is really a global issue, but for now we're starting in the States. We did go to London last year and talk to some people about their needs out there. But right now, we're looking at the top 10 markets in the United States that have some of the highest energy burdens, some of the most positive, for lack of a better word, incentives to do electrification and the potential for fuel switching. So obviously we've been here in California, but we just signed a contract a few months ago with the city of Atlanta in Georgia to do a pilot. They are very interested. They have some of the highest energy burden, I think the fourth highest energy burden in the city of Atlanta in the nation, for their community. So they're really interested in providing some incentives and doing a pilot, which is sort of where we are now. And so they want to see 200 homes assessed and at least 100 homes with energy efficiency and electrification upgrades. And so that's what we're working on now. And once again, as we mentioned, our motto is not to just come into a community, but to work with the community, but work and find out where those resources are and build up those resources. So we're working with NAMAC, the national chapter. They have 23 chapters. And one of their chapters, we're working with the chapter here in the Bay Area, but we're also working with the NAMAC chapter in Atlanta. And so we'll be setting up workforce training sessions and helping some of the younger contractors understand the process and how they can really build a sustainable business in electrification. One of the things we found out, dealing with a lot of contractors of color and women contractors, NAMAC stands for National Association of Minority Contractors. They're a national association that have been around for, what is it, Mark, 30 plus years. And they have 23 chapters in 23 different cities around the nation, supporting contractors of color. And so we thought that they would be a good partner to help build up, to help them scale this new market. We found a lot of contractors, they're licensed, they have their required licensing and insurance and all of this, and they're trying to get on as a sub with these larger projects, whether it be BART or infrastructure or bridge and highway projects, and that may take years. And so explaining to them that, hey, we can show you how to do the residential sector, and we can develop a pipeline of as many projects as your team can handle, whether it's 1 a month or 20 a year. that can really provide sustainable cash flow for these contractors, and also, build wealth generation for some of these smaller contractors. I think there's a great economic development potential there. And so we're really excited about our moving into new markets, where we can do this and really make a significant impact, both in job creation, but also on the health and the cost that people spend for their utility. So I think that's pretty much where we are now. We're excited about the work we do, and every day is a challenge, because we literally work with about 30, 40 different partners in different areas to put it together to make these projects and these campaigns run at scale. Go to the next slide. But so if you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them. If you're interested, our information's on there, so feel free to email us or call us. So I guess we can take some questions now, unless you have something else, Mark, you wanted to add?
Awesome. Thank you guys so very much. I know how hard you work and how much work you do, and it's awesome to see a little bit of that shared back with the community. For the logistics of question and answer, I'm happy to read out questions from the chat. So please do feel free to drop them in. We'll aggregate them and deliver. I have a few lined up myself as well, in case folks are having question block and not ready yet. But to kick things off, from Jennifer West, what are some of the impacts of your work now or expected in the future? Are the number of contractors doing this work and the number of homes you're reaching increasing over time in the Bay Area market? And also, thanks for the good work.
So the impact, well, I'll let Mark talk about some of the projects, or the number of projects in the pipeline we're developing. But the contractors, yes, like we said, our last training, which was 2 weeks ago, we did it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 3 days. It was an all-day training from, what time did we start? Like 9 a.m. to about 3 p.m. And we had 50 contractors sign up. Additional contractors wanted to, and said they, since it was on a weekday, they had other stuff they had to do. But we got a really good feedback from it. A lot of contractors came up and said, hey, I knew nothing about this. I've been doing this type of work, something similar, but I didn't know that there was this opportunity just do all of these residential projects. I've done a few HVAC, and I do it when the client asks, but I didn't know that I could really build my business and double or triple, the type of business that I do based on this market, because we really try to show them the opportunity. And working with CRC stands for Contractor Resource Center, to provide that additional information just on almost a SBA for contractors, about your bonding, about your insurance, about how you talk to your clients, how important communication is, things like that, how to be thorough with your site visits. So really trying to help these contractors build a strong business in that. And so we definitely have seen a difference. We've been able to sign up new contractors over the past 18 months with Bayran. I think, I'm not sure, about 18 new contractors in this area. We have a lot of apprenticeship students who are like, I didn't know anything about this. Now I have an idea of what direction I want to go in. So thank you for that. So I definitely have seen some impact in the last literally 12 months as far as the contractor piece. So we need to increase that skilled workforce, and I think we're doing it. It's not a overnight process, but I think we're definitely making some strides. And Mark, if you want to talk about some of the maybe some of the partners and how we're developing our pipeline.
Yeah, sure. I mean, partners, like so the pipeline, yes, it is growing. I think I saw that was Jennifer that asked that question. So yeah, hello, Jennifer. Yeah, the pipeline is definitely growing. We're seeing it grow more as folks associate heat pumps and electrification with the health benefits. As we're addressing, as we're working with like some of the low-income folks in the traditional like housing rehab programs, a lot of them just weren't, like, literally were not aware that having gas in your home is not good for your health. And so as you know, as that type of messaging, I guess, you know, permeates more, we are seeing definitely an uptick. You know, word of mouth, folks, you know, voicemails and emails and all that. So definitely, most definitely.
Thank you, guys. Next question here. Could you say more about the funding model? Do the homeowners also put money down, or is it all no money down? And I might also add to this question if you can speak to whether or not financing has a role to play here.
Definitely.
I'll go first and then I'll let
Go
Mark
ahead.
speak because, you know, Mark, you know, when he started Revalue, it was based on the technology platform, and it was based on identifying houses, properties, really, real estate, both commercial and residential, that had needs, and then matching it with the incentives and with the financing that was available. And we've sort of built on that. So, you know, our database can identify, hey, you know, City of Oakland, there's 342 homes that have active asthma complaints that, you know, should be remediated. And we can match them up with the specific, you know, obviously with BayREN, with the work they do with the rebates and incentives, but also with the tech program, with this program, with this program, with this program, with social impact capital, maybe low interest or no interest. So that's sort of the foundation. And Mark, you know, they also asking about money down, or how does it work for the consumer?
Yeah, so I mean that is a great question about the financing. Definitely, we have for the last several years we've been working with one of our main finance partners. You guys are probably familiar with Block Power. You know, speaking to like that social impact financing model, but overall the no wrong door process is designed so that, you know, so like there's not one funding model. It's complex because you literally have to align, braid, and coordinate all those different programs or resources based on that specific occupant's situation. So, you know, best case scenario, there's no financing needed, but you know, yes, we do have finance partners that we work with if financing is needed.
If we need to fill the gaps. And one of the other things is working with the service providers, and we're finding out some of the barriers. Every day we find out a new barrier, new obstacle, is that they may provide services to, like I said before, install a new gas heater because this family's gas heater went out, they're low income, you know, can't be cold and unhealthy at home, but they may not look at the alternatives of electric. And they're like, well, that costs, you know, $20 more, that costs a little bit more. We you know, that's not what we do, even though that's the better option long-term. So we might have to find funding gaps, or actually just convince some, and we've been able to do that, convince some of these service providers, like, look, this is the better option, and actually got them to change some of their policies around that, instead of just installing the thing that's causing some of the health issues, just reinstalling a new one. So that's also been, I think, a big win for us as far as how we feel we're sort of moving the needle, is providing education to the service providers that are supposed to be doing this work. Found a lot of them don't even know what a heat pump is, which was kind of amazing and a little distressing at first. But that's about the funding.
That's great. It's super important and has spillover effects to even communities where you're not involved. I'm going to group a few multifamily related questions. So first one, are you seeing multifamily property owners motivated to take on these projects? And then to add to that, can you speak to your experience, if any, with small multifamily buildings such as under 20 units, and what have been lessons learned?
So multifamily property owners, there are difficulties and barriers there that are natural, because the impact for the health safety side is on the occupant, on the resident, on the tenant. And the owner is usually not the tenant. So asking the property owner to make a often a significant investment into this property, if they don't feel it's necessary, can take some work, and they're not necessarily motivated. So, our whole mission is, how do we fill these gaps in the whole ecosystem? And so that was something that we have been working on for the past year with East Bay Rental Housing Organization, to try to develop solutions for the investors and for the property owners, the multifamily property owners, the landlords. And so we are working to develop a residential green lease. Green lease is something that's been used in commercial properties, but it's very technical, saying, hey, we're going to do this, but we're going to prorate your rent, and we're going to do these things, and it's very transactional. And we're trying to develop a more collaborative type of green lease model, that where the property owners, meaning the multifamily property owners, benefit. We can show them how this benefits not only and increases the interest in their properties, but also increases the value overall, and how we can apply various incentives so we can lower their project costs, so it's not a great burden on them, and they can still have a significant profit margin. But also on the resident side, that they should cooperate, work with the property owners to do these upgrades, which will be helpful for them and their family. So we look at how to draft anti-displacement to make sure, because that's one of their greatest fears, and it has happened more often than it should. Property owner says, I need to make some upgrades, and puts the tenant out, and the tenant never is able to come back. So we drafting for green leases, anti-displacement protections and things like that, consumer protections, but also motivating the multifamily property owner on the other side with incentives. And you had another question.
I sort of feel you addressed it. The other question was specific experience with small multifamilies, such as under 20 units. So if you have anything else to add, but I, understand that a lot of what you spoke to are those barriers.
A lot of some of the projects starting out were multifamily, because we were working with community land trusts who wanted to figure out how they could improve their properties, and some nonprofits that own, affordable housing and scattered site affordable housing, or naturally occurring affordable housing. And so we did work on a number of multifamilies, and they have their own set of challenges. Mark, maybe you can quickly talk about what's the difficulty of multifamily that's not against the wall, installing split heat pumps, but you need the outside wall and.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, with the smaller, I mean, just design overall. A lot of the smaller multifamily properties out here, a lot of times they're not always up to code, and so designing the systems for these properties that usually have like an add-on, or not a permitted unit or something like that, can add to the complexity, add to the cost. So probably, I guess that's one thing I would mention. Just when you're working with the smaller multifamily properties, there's usually a lot of unpermitted improvements that add to that complexity, probably.
And saying that, that's also why it's trying to motivate them when they may know that something may not be totally up to code. They don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. Like, no, I don't want people in the building. I don't want to do anything, because that is a concern in the back of their mind. And so we kind of have to include that in estimating, like, hey, we will, we're not out to get you. We really do want to make improvements, and we do want to lower the cost. So, these are some of the ways. So it takes more engagement. To answer one of the questions in the chat, it takes it's a longer project period to deal with the multifamily, because you have more issues. It's a larger project, and you have more issues in dealing with the landlord and also the tenants. You have additional stakeholders.
Awesome. Thank you. So next question here, how did you develop partnerships with utilities?
Mark, you want to talk about how PG&E came to the table? We did Mark likes to say bootstrapping. I don't like to say bootstrapping because we're doing what we're doing and it's working. But we did our first job training at Cypress Mandela, and we invited other people. And it's interesting because PG&E has, if you go on their website, they have a lot of, on their education, they have a lot of videos and on-demand training about electrification and heat pumps and installations. But we invited the ecosystem to come see our training. I mean, we spent a lot of money to hire the very best trainers we could, literally in the nation. We did a national search and said, who's been doing this for 20, 30 years? Who's been writing the papers on it? Who's been really teaching? And I forgot where the guy is from, but some from the Midwest. So we flew him out here to teach these classes. And PG&E was one of the invitees. And yeah, the response was just phenomenal. They were a little bit amazed that we were doing in-person trainings on electrification. So while they had the on-demand and the videos, they didn't have any type of in-person, hands-on type of training. And they were like, we love this. You have a space to do this. Place is important. Not everybody has place. But we love all of this. And, what do you need and how can we be a part of it? And we ended up signing a workforce training collaboration agreement with them to do more. So so they had some of their trainers at our last, the same trainers they use came out and taught some sessions at our last training a couple weeks ago. But that's how that worked. And for East Bay Community Energy, they are a CCA, community choice aggregation. Part of their mission is electrification, is energy efficiency, is renewable energy, and to build out those models so we can make this transition. So they were trying to figure some things out, and we, sort of have been doing the work for a number of years. And so that was a partnership with Block Power, who's a national social impact funder, but we do the execution of their project. So they do the funding piece. And so they allocated $1.4 million for some direct project investment to Block Power, and Block Power, we partner with them to actually do those projects where we could apply, once again, another way we can braid in some more funds for projects. And so that's sort of how they came. I mean, so we invite them to things and then they like it and it's like, hey, we want more. How do we make this work is sort of the short answer.
Yep, I can speak to that personally. So given that we're running a little lower on time, for folks, if you want to look at questions in the chat and give a thumbs up to something that you're particularly interested in, that will help us prioritize. A few things briefly from Nick Brown. This is it. What a great approach to reaching the hard to reach. Come to Long Beach. So consider yourselves invited. This next question down here. What kinds of skepticisms do you face from communities? How do you address these skepticisms? For example, contractors who are skeptical about the efficacy of heat pumps, community members skeptical of the importance of fuel switching, etc.
Mark, we just had that conversation with one of that last clients this week. So you want to talk about the letter we got her?
Yeah, so I guess probably the main one that we get is around the stoves, the gas stoves. A lot of folks are just used to the gas. I think, we had it was an Oakland homeowner, older woman. And she just typed me a message basically saying, I do want to support the environment. I'm with the movement. I appreciate all, you bringing all this stuff together and stuff. But it's just something about turning on that gas. I'm really used to that. I'm better cooking with that. And so that was her main thing. And I've heard that several times. And another homeowner, was mentioned her biscuits. She was like, my biscuits aren't going to rise, if I don't have the gas. So but basically what we tell folks is, we definitely share the information about the cookware and ways that you can sort of, get more familiar with the induction cooktops. But, it's a process of education and folks just, becoming more comfortable with the new technology. But that is the main thing that we've heard. I mean, the noise thing, I mean, I've heard some, a little bit about that, but really just, reading about that, I haven't actually heard that from any actual contractors or customers. But yeah, I would say that's the main thing. And maybe the actual savings of probably a gas water heater versus the electric heat pump water heater. Some folks have just asked that question, but I think a lot of that is just because folks are just used to doing it's just easier to just do the gas water heater replacement. So those are the main two that I've heard.
Awesome. We probably have time for just a couple more questions here. So the next one, what kind of help do you need to scale the great work you do?
Mark, that's
an
definitely
Aaron question.
More partners. We are all about partners. I ran for office once, and I was trying to think of a message, a simple message, and it ended up being better together. And that's what I figured out, that we really can't make these changes at scale. And we're talking about transforming a whole nation, transforming our entire earth, without doing it together. So while we deal with a lot of partners and people like Revalue does all this, we do it in collaboration, because we definitely don't do everything. I don't install heat pumps, but I work with contractors and encourage them that this is a business opportunity that can be transformative for them and for their community. So it's, we're always looking at how we can develop out the ecosystem, because I think that's sort of the biggest barrier to this electric transformation, and really a just transformation. You talk about a just transformation, and I know we're at time, but I haven't mentioned it. It's making sure that everybody gets what they need, and it's fair and equitable. And we really try to focus in on that. We talk to all of our clients, meaning the customers. We go in and sit with them and make sure that we have an understanding of what they need, and not just send contractors in there to as they might say, tear up their house. So it's really about partnerships and collaborations with communities, with utilities, with municipalities. Government is so important to provide those incentives like BayREN and some of the others, the tech program. And so that's really what we need. And I saw another question about the Inflationary Reduction Act. That's a piece of it. It's a huge thing. Was signed last October, and I said, Mark, it's going to be about 7 or 8 months before the money runs downhill. And after the beginning of the year, maybe around the summertime, we'll see the RFPs from the cities, and that timing has been about right. That we're just now seeing cities sort of reach out, saying, hey, we're applying for this grant, through either Infrastructure Act or IRA. Can you help us? And so that's sort of where we are now. Is either we're reaching out to them or they're reaching out to us.
Well, that is such a great note to end on. Partnerships are how we get anything done. So thank you so very much. I just really appreciate your time. As noted, there's a link that was dropped in the chat to where you can access the recording after the fact. Sorry, we didn't get to all the great questions that folks had. But again, please welcome me in thanking our awesome hosts and all the amazing work that they do.
And Becky, just want a reminder, we are Revalue IO. I don't know if it was ever mentioned, so don't go look up revalue.com or or Revalue IO.
Revalue.io is how you find these great folks. And also we'll make sure that the presentation is posted, and you'll have access to the slide deck, including their contact info. So you can get them down to Long Beach or wherever else you want to leverage this awesome model.
And thank you to the Building Decarbonization Coalition for this. I mean, we really appreciate this opportunity to talk to people. I mean, that's what we need to do, is to get the word out that this is a real thing and there are solutions and out there, and still obstacles. So we appreciate this opportunity immensely just to talk about it.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, again. Thanks for the extra little bit of time, and enjoy the rest of your Thursdays.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.